welcome to the Natural Balance Masterclass. My name is Neal. You're probably asking yourself, like, what is natural balance?
hmm
And so I'm going to distinguish what natural balance is and where it comes from. What is it? Well, it's what happens when you stop doing and you start being. Uh, because most of our lives we're just like distracted with just doing things all the time, and then there's these sweet moments where we be, and it's from that being that's where natural balance comes from. There's a natural balance is a global movement of virtual and physical ceremony.
Mm.
So right now you're at a virtual natural balance ceremony, and um, Natural Balance has hosted now, I believe, 11 physical ceremonies. These ceremonies have included like psilocybin mushroom journeys. These ceremonies have included cacao in combination with ecstatic dances. These ceremonies have included like meditations. And natural balance, the main orientation of natural balance is oriented towards nurturing balance and cooperation inside of a person. And it appears outside of us, but it only appears outside of us once we've already nurtured it inside of us. So we got to go inside first, which is literally the concept of natural balance is going within, nurturing this balance, nurturing this cooperation, and then filling yourself up with it to the extent that it literally pours out of you. And so how is natural balance global? Well, it's global because it exists in the hearts of the people. And there's people globally. There's people all over this plane that we live on. And so this natural balance is coming through the heart. And the origin of natural balance is the same origin, and the origin is the creator. So it's literally the creator coming through the heart being expressed into the world. And natural balance, it's our difference. So I have a difference that actually contributes to other people, and you have a difference that actually contributes to other people. And this difference is the unique natural balance coming through you. Welcome, Dave. So, natural balance, it's coming through the heart, and the source is the creator, is God, and then how that shows up is different for every single person. But each person has the potential to tap into their own natural balance. And that's where community comes in, because it's in community that we each contribute to each other. And we don't need to live in the same location to be in community. Community is a mindset. You can have a way of being, of showing up as being a community person. That, hey, if this woman or this man, if they're like committed to the same thing that I'm committed to, and they're taking the steps and they're taking the action and they're moving in that direction, then I choose to be in community with this man or with this woman, even if they're thousands of miles away. So natural balance is, that's why the virtual platform, because it allows for outreach, it allows for expansion and connection. So that's what natural balance is. That's what it where it comes from. And the heart is not the source. The creator is the source, but the heart is the receiver that picks up the creator. And if we get out of the way, the creator can come through the heart, just straight from source to the heart, straight out the mouth, or straight out the hands as our actions, or straight out the feet as our actions. So this is natural balance. I am natural balance. I'm literally in my natural habitat right now. This is the greenhouse, and the greenhouse is not my natural habitat. My natural habitat is nature, and when I'm in nature, I'm in my natural habitat. And right now, I'm in nature. So I I was like feeling into, all right, so what is the direction of this evening, and what is how does this flow in the space that we're in? And uh this past week for Neal personally has been really tumultuous, and there's been a lot of emotions moving in my body, and I've had so many broken expectations, um, literally in the last week, that it's insanity. Like my brain trying to figure it out is it's not even able to make sense of it all. And these broken expectations have also been like broken control. So the expectation came from like having a vision, and then like needing it to be that way, and then actually taking the steps, which is great, except for the vision was in alignment with ego, and the ego was using the vision to control conversations, to control situations, and to control events. And then what happened is that my expectations got broken. And one clear example was we had some plants ordered to arrive here on Friday, and I had prepared space to plant them, and they didn't show up Friday. And so, boom, like I just had this like, wow, now I put all this energy in, I'm ready for them. But they didn't arrive on Friday when I was ready for them, but they actually arrived today when I was not ready for them. I actually had other things planned for today. So actually, right before this call, I planted like some spinach and some kale, and there's more to plant. And I'm saying this because it didn't become fulfilled how what my expectation was that it was going to be, and how I let that broken expectation affect me is my responsibility. And if I like need it to be a certain way, I'm gonna do everything I can to have it be that way. That's a recipe for heartache. It's a recipe for broken expectations. If you need it so much, then it's like it's a recipe for a broken heart also. um but then conversely, if I have this vision, all right, so I want the plants on Friday, all right, great, that's the intention. But now the plants don't show up, then there's the surrender that happens. And the surrender happens in the exact moment where the expectation's not met. And then what is surrendered is the expectation. You have this vision, and you have this like, oh, I'm actually like, I'm talking about it, I'm taking the steps to fulfill this vision. And now something, a higher perspective just stepped in, and it's not turning out how I saw that it might. And so I surrender how I saw. And then because of that, like like all the moments where I had broken expectations this past week, what came through and what came out of the situation was like even greater than I had originally envisioned. So we think we know what we're doing, but we actually don't. And the thing that thinks it knows what it's doing is like, it's the ego, it's our name, it's all our programs, it's all our stories, it's our belief systems, which are belief systems are BS, they're bullshit. And so when we have an expectation, often this expectation is coming from the ego, it's coming from the program, it's coming from the belief systems. And that most of the time doesn't get fulfilled. And then here's the kicker on this one: if that expectation does get fulfilled, we fulfill it, but now we've fulfilled the expectation of our ego, but there still feels like a void inside of us. And what's missing is alignment. What's missing is alignment with source, with God, because it wasn't alignment with our ego. It was just like either desire or control with an expectation. That was like the intention. So my week has been all over the place, and I'm curious I would like to open it up for shares and see where you were at and see what has been going on in your life, and have you been experiencing surrender, and if you have, how has it directly affected your week this week? So who would like to go first?
Well, I'll go first.
Yeah. Thanks for being a leader. Thanks for going first, Lisa. Welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I was thinking as you were talking, like some of my, like I'm so accustomed to surrender because I have an adult daughter with Down syndrome, and she, so I have to kind of, take her to places, sort of create a schedule for her. There's a lot of things that she can't do for herself. A lot of things she can do, and then I have a fairly debilitated partner who's in bed most of the time. So I feel like it's sort of the culmination of a lifetime of sort of always being situated in a way that it's difficult for me to think about making a lot of plans for myself. So a lot of the times the distinction about leadership and other things is difficult for me to to address, because I feel like I don't lead in my life. Um, and so surrender is I'm pretty accustomed to, things not necessarily um, being what I planned them to be. And there are also really wonderful surprises that arise out of that too. But yeah, so I guess I'm more lacking in terms of like really taking hold of my life and my time, and having more of a vision. So
Is there more there, or is that complete?
that's complete.
Thank you, Lisa. Mervin, welcome.
So it's been a roller coaster this week too for me. It's been up and down and everything. And like very chaotic. My life has always been chaotic on the outside, but on the inside, there's not. It's not. I don't feel anything really, but I'm just, I'm just here, listening, being accountable for tonight, for right now. It's very, um, yeah. So just trying to ride the waves, I guess, the ups and downs. Thank you.
Would you be interested in sharing like a specific wave that you've experienced this week?
It's my own thoughts. It's my thoughts are like it's just they're everywhere. Um Trying to stay motivated, but it's been better. Like so there's nothing really going on with me right now. So it's everything outside. So yeah, so one thing is like just like where my life's headed and stuff like that. So, I'm done.
Thank you for sharing, Mervin.
Yep.
Andrea, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome everyone as well. Really appreciating this. In the midst of work, and that is very much aligned with some activities today. The question was like, where's surrender showing up? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, well, first, there's two questions. First of all, how's your week? And then second of all, how has surrender played part of your week?
Related very much so to being everywhere, like, or emotions, and it culminated today with the surrender. And I tried to do it the other day. I think it just kept taking it back, and there's something about the sense of community too that was mentioned. I'm multitasking. I don't know if it had to do with the moon or not. Maybe I'll just go with that. But today, as I connect more to the community and I'm more present with who I am and my spirit and my breath, and allowing things to be as they are and not resisting, I could tell very much so when I started to want to control. My brain was trying to figure everything out. It was very apparent the more I practiced letting go. And something major happened at work. Like, you might could tell personally from our last experience how I shared in the workspace, and now how I'm sharing around my coworker now with less resistance. And I had a conversation with my boss that I ended up having to surrender it all, choosing to surrender it all in a moment that felt really nice. And then my Al-Anon sponsor walked in the same moment that I was saying that, and said something about lint, which I never did growing up and I don't know much about, but I was like, I just literally said surrender it all, and it was just beautiful. So I could tell my brain was still running afterwards though. So I kept trying to do it and make it, physical. I saying it out loud and connecting with others around me in the community. And eventually I realized like there was more to be clear on, and communicated that and feel so much more content and present to who I am. So I'm grateful to be tuning in with you all and the conversation, very much so. Thanks for listening.
You're welcome. I have a question. Are you open to a question?
Sure, thank you.
What did you surrender?
I would say the decision. That's a perfect question. I'm really appreciating that inquiry because it was not clear to me when I did it. My will, control, and I think I did say trying to figure it all out.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Awesome. Is there more, or is that complete?
I do feel complete, even though there could be more. My attention is delegated and focused at work, so I'll just be mindful of that. And I appreciate you asking if it's complete. It shall be complete right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So surrender, that plays directly into receiving. And if we so let's say I have a vision, and I'm going to use actually one of the examples from this past week. The tilapia pond. I received a vision of having fish on site here. Like, I don't know, it was maybe like a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. But it was just kind of, the vision was just like ungrounded. It was just a vision. That's what a vision is. It's not physical yet, it's just a vision. And it was a vision for a fish pond. And then there came like there came a moment where it was like, oh, it's time to set a date for this thing. Like this thing is gonna happen like about a week and a half from now. It's gonna be done. And so I had this vision, and then from the vision, I set a date, and that date was last Friday. It was on the 9th, and the the vision of the actually, I'm going to verify that. Yes, the tilapia pond was to be complete on the 9th, and so that was the completion date. That was the pond fully filled with water. That was the fish already in it. That was oxygen happening for the fish. And I began to take steps to implement this. And one of the first steps was to dig a hole. And so we're digging this by hand. And it's a medium-sized tilapia pond. So it's like maybe even considered small. So it's like 3 meters by 3 meters by a meter and a half deep. And so that comes out by about like 12 by 12 by 6 feet. And so the first step was to dig this. So we as a community here, we dug the hole, and then the intention was to have the inside of it lined with a plastic liner, and then have rocks and plants around the perimeter. And the rocks were to hold the plastic, and the plants were to hold the soil. And the hole got dug in 2 days. So it was done on Tuesday. On Wednesday, I received some assistance to like gather stone for this tilapia pond. And on the same day, Wednesday, I received insight from our property manager that this like construction wizard, who's really intelligent with design and structures and buildings, as well as like landscape, outside design, garden beds and ponds and this type of thing. His name's Jose, and he was going to be here, and there's a potential for him to like do a cement and in combination with riverstone inlay. So it's like riverstone with cement holding it together. And it was like, I don't know if we want to do this, because if we choose this, it's going to take longer and it's not going to be ready on Friday. And which was the intention. So there was this already a compromise in the expectation. And but the thing was that when we here at the village took a step to actually start to dig this pond, it was in that exact moment that the vision went from being ungrounded to being actually physical. So before that, it was just an idea. It was just like a concept that we discussed and we spoke about, and we were like, well, how much is it gonna, like, what kind of funds are needed to actually fund this, and how are we gonna go about it, and what kind of materials are we gonna use? And that's all ungrounded conversation. It's just concepts and ideas. And from those concepts and ideas came actual action steps that we could implement. And I and some of the other people here began to implement those action steps immediately. And then new information was received, which was like, hey, there's actually another potential for this. Like, maybe it doesn't look like how you thought it was going to look, but there's actually maybe like how it was going to be with the plastic, it would need to be replaced maybe every 3 years. But with the concrete, it's like a 10 or 15 year thing, and maybe even longer. So the initial setup would take longer, but the longevity of it would increase. And so this came into the picture, and then a decision was made to actually go this route. And so this construction wizard, Jose, and his crew began to like implement this river stone and concrete. And in the moment that I received new information, in the exact moment where the original intention was a plastic liner, but now I just saw this with the concrete. I literally had to surrender my expectation of what it was going to look like. And were I to have just like stayed really like hooked on what I needed it to look like and needing it to be this way, and that with needing it to be the way that I originally saw it, there would have been a lot of suffering that would have gone along with that, because there was momentum going in the direction of a new idea, and the new idea was in alignment with God's intention. And how do I know? Is because that's the one that got implemented. See, we think we know what we're doing, and we think we know what we're seeing, but there's always a higher perspective, and that higher perspective is source, and that higher perspective is God. And if we stay so committed to what we see, and we stay so committed to what we know, we don't surrender and allow for that, for ourselves to see that higher perspective. So how we see that higher perspective is that in the moment when new information comes in, like, maybe, hey, it's actually not going to look like how I thought it was going to look like. It's now going to be this. It's in that moment that we choose, are we going to just keep going with how we think it's going to look like, or are we going to surrender what we think it's going to look like? And in surrendering what we think it's going to look like, after that, opening ourselves up, like, wow, because once we surrender what we thought it was going to look like, there's a void, there's space. And from that space, that's where receiving comes in. That's where receiving and surrendering are paired, because the surrender happens first, and then we're in this space, which it's in that space that we can allow ourselves to receive. And that happens after the surrender, and the receiving is consensual. So we choose whether we receive or not. And God doesn't make us receive, and no other person can make you receive. You only ever choose to receive from other people. And if you don't know that you choose, then you're probably reacting a lot still. But if you're conscious, if you know, I actually do have a choice whether to receive or not, then that is being a creator. That's like, hey, I'm actually creating listening right now. I'm creating receiving right now. And then there's another element. So there's the surrender, then there's the spaciousness, which opens up for the surrender and the allowing and the receiving. And then after that, that's when expression happens, because we can express before we surrender, but if we express before we surrender, then we're literally just expressing our programs, we're expressing our belief systems, we're expressing our what we think we see, but we're not even considering that there's a higher perspective, because if we consider there's a higher perspective, we would need to let go of our control and manipulation and significance, and the ego doesn't want that. It's like, no, thank you, I'm not going to surrender, I'm just going to keep my control. Please give me some significance. That's what the ego just loves. And so are we to choose to surrender that significance? Are we to choose to surrender that control and listen, like actually listen, just listen, receive, and then take action from the listening, take action from the receiving, speak from the receiving, speak from the listening. That's when we're in alignment. That's when we're congruent. Well, in alignment with what? Congruent with what? Congruent with source, congruent with God, congruent with our higher self. And what I'm calling the higher self is literally God. So so it's from when we listen, and then we take action from the listening, that's alignment. And so with natural balance, this alignment is essential, because if you're coming from the ego, that's also a really cerebral, it's like in the head, it's all the brain doing the conversation. If we're thinking a lot, and if we're taking action from our thinking, and if we know how to do it, and if we have it all figured out, that's the ego, and that isn't natural balance. Natural balance is when we surrender that, and then we listen, and then we allow source, we allow God to come through our heart and express into the world. And then how that's expressed is our unique expression of natural balance. It's our difference. It looks different for every person, but altogether, each piece is a part of the whole picture. And with that, welcome, Dave.
Well, as you're talking here, Neal, it makes me think of an analogy of tuning into a radio station, and what you're saying is that that surrender, that's finding that alignment, is that station where you have a clear transmission and reception, both that are aligned, and that's what you said earlier with the heart tuning in, and then when you find the static, say you're going about your tuning in, but you get static, that could be your ego causing blockages, and you start to get that fuzz either side of the tune. So by actually recognizing that as being the static that it is, the ego kind of interfering, going back to the tuning, and as you said in your example there, you had somebody come in with a different idea that was actually correcting or retuning your channel, so that you were able to then see an aha, like, oh, that's a better idea, sort of a thing. So, and that's going back to your community concept, where when you have other inputs, other people that are also aligned in their tuning and their station, suddenly you have an amplification of that station, if you will. And now you've got some synergy and flow in the group, and you get a lot of stuff done as a result. But you all have to be attuned, as you're saying, that natural balance in that frequency, that alignment of the God is, I am, or claiming what you want, which was you wanted the pond, but the how wasn't necessarily there. The how came in through the tuning. With the, is this Jose from Ecomaste, by the way?
Different Jose, but
okay.
he definitely has the expertise to do this also.
Yeah, well, I'm a pond guy, so as you're talking, I'm thinking that that I don't know what you're even looking at there. If there's a flow already, are you just looking at digging a hole in a spot? You got to look at the soil that's ambient in the area. Is it going to be porous? Is it going to be more clay? Is it going to be able to hold the water? The other thing that you got to consider as well is other animals, ducks in ponds, actually, in their fecal matter and in their disturbance, will settle sediment to the bottom and actually seal the pond, so that you can then put the fish in. So you may want to consider ducks first before the fish, because their organic material will line the bottom. Also, leaves and things too, you can put on the bottom before you fill with water. If it's a porous soil, leaves and organic matter can create that lining you're looking for without having plastic. It'll be a natural lining, but it's also helpful to have a flow of water. You have like a little stream coming in, so it's oxygenating, but also you got a fresh water input, but you're also always refilling too. It's not going to be a stagnant pond that's going to be attracting undesirables such as insects, mosquitoes, that kind of thing. You want to have a flow and almost mimic like a beaver dam. So you want to have some organic material, like a dam, wooden pieces and things. So there's the leakage, if you will. As long as you have flow coming in, you have a balance in and out. And that organic material I spoke of earlier will allow the seepage to a minimum. And then you can have your fish in there, and the tilapia can do pretty well with some not the cleanest water, which is why the ducks in advance can help to seal the floor of the pond. So just some ideas there as you're contemplating your pond. But selection of location, the soil type, what's the inflow of water, what's the outflow look like, and so those are the elements that you definitely want to consider. You want to kind of be in a key line where kind of the slope drops, kind of levels and then drops again. So you can have this natural gravitational pull in and then release over the top, which should be your dam or whatever. So anyway, just throwing those ideas out there, in addition to your alignment that you already received.
Yes. Well, this is really congruent with what's already been implemented here. Like, we have a river right next to it, and the intention is to have the river flow into the pond, and it flows in from like a 5 or 6 feet drop, so it's like dropping into the pond, and then the pond has an overflow that flows back into the river. So the river comes in and it flows right on back and joins again.
Yeah, so you're diverting the water slightly to make the pond and then come back in again. So
Yes.
that's great. That's what you want. You want to have that natural. You can do a diversion, but you want to have a natural in and out flow, because the key is you want to oxygenate the water. So you want to have some cascade effect coming in, so it's aerating as it's entering. So you don't have to add any artificial inputs such as a pump or a fountain to aerate. I mean, that'd be nice. It might be for an aesthetic thing, but that requires electricity. So if you let nature do all the work, in other words, create the aeration, create the oxygenation on its own, it can be left alone, just like nature does. I mean, you don't put fountains in natural ponds; they just do their thing. But having that disturbing water as it comes in is going to create that oxygenation, so that the fish will be thriving.
Yes.
And be careful.
So
You don't want to get too many fish in there all at once, because they'll have the oxygen.
Yeah.
You talk about natural balance. It's exactly what you're trying to create with the pond. I mean, you're creating a man-made thing that's going to mimic a natural ponding and fish environment. So you're trying to mimic that as much as possible. And in the process, working with the land as well, being attuned to what the land wants as well, versus what you want. I mean, we tend to rush in with our egoic mind and control the situation, which, that's the masculine dominance coming in. But you also want that feminine sort of receptiveness of what the land wants, and let it kind of, and that requires that meditation, that quiet time before you even act on with a shovel, just saying, hey, is this the right place? Is this where you want the pond to be? Ask those questions to the land, and you'd be surprised what it comes back to you. And that's your surrender there as well. You're surrendering to the land versus trying. We do this in the West all the time. The Western mind is to come in with dominance. I got an idea. I got a machine. Let's start digging. And you even see in Costa Rica where you can destroy the land pretty quickly with some mechanized devices. And you're like, wow, that was not a good idea, because we just tore it all up. You got erosion now. Now you're creating silt and pollution in the water, and you disrupted the whole balance. So that's what I'm saying. Just, it's easy to make a big mistake pretty quickly in land work. So you listen to the land and surrender to it, because we are part of it as well as being dwelling on it. We're not just there to take from it. We're there to give to it as well. And that's why what you guys got going on, you mentioned the plantings and whatnot. You can bring a lot of new energy to a place, fruit trees, annual gardens, that kind of thing. And by doing that, you're attracting the things that you like, bird like, that kind of a thing. You created a vibrancy. And that's what can happen in a food forest. That's, I think, what you're trying to strive for, is that food forest sort of automated landscape that provides for you as well as the indigenous animals.
Yes. Is there more there, or is that complete, Dave?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, it's complete on what I was trying to say, and also anchoring it with your real life example with the ponds, and just, because I guess I'm a pond guy, so I see what you're doing. I appreciate what you're trying to do, and I want you to have success with it. But there are some things, particularly, like I said, just being aware of what the land can receive to you, and that's, again, that tuning, not just tuning into your ideas, but also what's the land going to give to you as well, as far as its message goes. So, and it's very important. Oftentimes our ego will short circuit that, and that's where that fuzz comes in, the static. And when you hear that, when you hear resistance, or you hear something's not working, you're out of tune. You got to come back in. You got to take that pause, be mindful, and just ask a question. Okay, how do I get back into tune? how do I align, or I am realigning and I'm listening. So I'm complete.
Thank you. Yeah, that was super valuable. Specifically the idea of just using organic matter as a liner and having that be the foundation. This wasn't even a consideration until right now. So I greatly appreciate that, and it's in my tool belt for the future. I don't know if I'll ever use it, but
Well, keep in mind too that initially your pond is going to fill with the organic matter. There will be leakage, there will be seepage initially. So that organic matter has to rot. The water is going to create pressure on all that organic material, and it's the pressure and decomposes. It's going to fill the little gaps. It'll fill that the seepage. So initially it's going to leak, but long term it'll seal up nicely. And it helps to have ducts as well, because the ducts will add their fecal matter, and that'll settle to the bottom, and it makes a great seal with the other organic matter. Muscovy ducks, if you have.
Yep.
We raise ducks, so I'm familiar.
Yeah. Is there more there, Dave, or is that complete?
That was just adding to that comment. Yes, I'm complete. Yes.
All right. So additionally, what I heard and what you shared is this concept of the in and out flow, the giving and the receiving. Both are important, and we're only ever able to give to the extent that we allow ourselves to receive. And if we so most of us like giving all the time, just giving, or we've been overpendulated to just receiving, and been like a pack rat and just receiving, but never really giving. Both are overpendulations, and it's in the balance of giving and receiving that we are that vibrant, alive pond, and we are that pond that has a flow coming into it, and it's vibrant, alive, because that flow coming in, it brings oxygen, it brings life, and but if the flow coming in doesn't have a flow going out, the pond overflows. And when the pond overflows, you have like water where you didn't want it, like it's literally all over the place. Like I didn't plan for water over there, it was to be in the pond, but because I wasn't giving, the pond is now overflowing. And so this giving and receiving is essential on a multi-dimensional level in our lives, and it's multi-situational. Welcome, Dave.
I just saw a comment there from Lisa about the micro hydro. So that's another adaptation for your pond, is that now you've got the pond, now you're going to have an outflow. You can let it flow naturally, as I said, like sort of like a beaver dam effect, where it's just going to kind of seep over the edge. Or you can put a pipe in there and draw the water, and then send that water down a certain vertical distance, and drop a head drop, and put it into a small micro turbine to create electricity. So now you're taking that potential energy of that pond at a certain elevation, and taking that effluent, going down in a tube to a hydro turbine, micro turbine, a bunch of feet down below, returning it back to the original stream. But at that point, you're capturing that kinetic energy into electricity, and now you've got a supply of energy for whatever you want on the site there. So that's like my other thing is with ponds, is trying to capture energy and create electricity. So Lisa, I appreciate that point.
Yeah, that is badass. Like how much of a drop would you put in, do you think?
Well, it depends. I mean, on a micro hydro base, it also depends on the volume of your output. But the smaller the volume, the smaller the hose. But then the drop can be farther, so the pressure over, say, 20 feet or 30 feet can be significant. Like it creates a jet, is what it does. So you're creating a, and then you put that through a micro turbine, and then send it back to the original water. So there's some math involved, but obviously the more water, the more force you're going to have, but you can also create a smaller amount of water in a smaller tube, and the longer the drop, it'll just create a nice jet effect that'll still spin that turbine. So you don't need a lot of water, but the higher the drop, the more the water volume can be less. Whereas you see big dams, the drop doesn't have to be as big, but they have huge amounts of water going across. So the weight of the water is pushing the turbine. Whereas when it's a smaller volume, the drop is further. So the pressure in a small tube is equal to or greater than a larger amount of water. So you can create the jet effect with a smaller tube and a bigger drop. So, 20, 30 feet is big enough to to spin a turbine.
I see this.
Just get your head drop.
So, thank you. This giving and receiving.
Yeah, just think about this pond, and you're think about the goals of the pond. You want it to be an aesthetic thing. You want it to be a food source, the tilapia. You want the fish to be happy, but you also want, if you can, to utilize the pond and a head drop to create energy, electricity with a turbine. So there's multiple functions out of this one thing you're trying to do.
Yes, I'm seeing this. Yes. Is there more there, or is that complete?
Well, that just coming full circle with what Lisa, she chimed in with another value add with ponds. So this can help you also expand your vision of what this pond's really going to be. So you can see yourself maybe with some chairs, hammock, or whatever. So it's a dwelling place in addition to a food source, in addition to an electricity creator. So you've got like 4 or 5 different functions. And that's what permaculture really does. It stacks functions that enable you to have multiple things happen at the same time without creating more work for all those different functions. So the functions work together in a synergy that's almost effortless. So you can benefit in a multitude of ways without having to put more work into it.
Yeah. Is there
It's a
more?
beautiful thing.
Is there more, or is that complete?
Well, the more part is my vision personally is to, I'm feeling this calling to come to Costa Rica, or even, to be the water guy, and to be going around to different landscapes and listening to the land and tuning it in and doing these very things I'm talking about.
That's more. Yep. Wow.
And I'm at that funk right now of how, and we're not supposed to think about the how, but I know the why, that's the why, but how's the how and where? The where is it locally, or is it truly, expatting myself and coming down there or someplace down there where I can express these goals?
So you're already doing the thing. Do you want to hear the thing that you're doing?
What's that?
You're asking questions. So we have this vision. You know your why. All right, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. But then how do we go from the ungrounded vision to having a physical, tangible step? Well, we do that by asking questions. What do questions do? They direct the focus. So when we have this ungrounded vision, which you, in your case, it's the vision of coming to Costa Rica and being this water, interacting with water somehow. I don't know exactly how you said it, but that's the vision. You have a why, and then the thing that you were doing was asking questions. Well, I don't know what it looks like, and like, what would it be if I did this? And then continuing to ask questions that are all specifically pointing towards the vision. And in doing so, we start getting answers. But the answers we get, they might not all be in alignment. Some of them might just be belief systems and programs and what people see. And but we take all this in. We don't reject any of it. We just allow it to come in. But we don't need to necessarily take it on. We just look at it and see what it is as discernment. But it's this asking of the questions. That's the thing you were doing. You were asking questions that were directing focus towards your vision, and you were asking, well, I don't know the how. Well, the how right now is to ask questions to direct the focus of what a tangible step might be. It's not that it is, but it's through the asking of the questions. It's like, hey, possibly there's like a step here. And then when that step feels in alignment, that's when the ungrounded vision actually becomes like, can become physical.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, well, it's just something I've literally observed because I've seen myself do it, and I saw it happen real time, and it was like, wow, you're asking questions that are oriented towards your vision, and yeah, I'm acknowledging you for it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm complete.
Yep. With this giving and receiving, I'd like to generate a homework related to that, and I think it's directly related to surrender. And does anybody have any ideas on what the homework might be? Like, you just got like a strong, hey, let's do this. Like, this would actually, and in your speaking to the homework, have it be something that would actually serve you and serve other people. So maybe that'll bring something up.
Well, maybe in your homework is find something in a vision, but to surrender to it and ask those questions you just mentioned, or ask some questions to find clarity, to see if it's the correct vision, to see if it isn't that tuning. Is it, am I tuned to the God frequency, or is it just static on the side?
Yeah. All right, I received this. Does anyone else have any input on what they think the homework might be, as a contribution to you and to other people? All right, so this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm intuiting. This is what I'm listening, and I heard, and what I'm hearing is that the homework is to identify a vision, identify a purpose for the future, identify something that is tangible, that you don't need to know how you're going to do it. All you need right now for the homework is the vision itself. So the homework is identify a vision, and then write it on paper. So like, write your vision on paper. And this can be a 1 week vision. This can be a month vision. This can be a 1 year vision. This could be a 3 year vision. This can be a lifetime vision. Have this be as small or as big as you want to make it. But the point is to have this vision and dial in the vision, put it on paper, and then start asking questions to yourself and to other people of how you're going to fulfill that vision, and then come next week prepared to share. How's that? Are we in? Do we want that for homework?
That sounds good.
So I'm going to speak to the homework one more time. So the homework is identify a vision. It can be as small or as big as you want to make it. It can be 1 week or 3 years. Identify the vision, number 1. Write it on paper, number 2. Number 3, ask yourself and others questions that will assist you in having this vision be physical. And we're a little early on time, and I love it because I've been going overtime with these classes. So we're on time tonight. On time by being early. Being early is being on time. And so I'm complete. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Mervin. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Andrea, for being here. It's been an honor and pleasure to be in this space and to be of service and to share and to co-create. This is a mastermind space. So when we're in this space, our brains start to work larger than any single one of us, and they start to work in sync. So this is that kind of an experience. And thank you so much. I love you. Who you are makes a difference. And remember that we don't need to know the how. We actually don't even need to know. All we need is to surrender and allow, and then take the steps from that allowing. And with that, good night.
Good night, Neal. Good night,
Good
everybody.
night.